Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Kevin Beardsley. I'm the lead product manager for pro trading here at Kraken. I'm joined today by Bruce Pon from Ocean Protocol. Bruce, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. And love to start just by introducing yourself a little bit. And maybe as a first question, how would you explain Ocean Protocol to somebody that you meet on the street? So a non-technical person that you just meet walking out one day.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my name is Bruce Pon. I am one of the founders of Ocean Protocol. Before that, I did a company called Big Chain DB and Ascribe, and we've been in the space for about over 7 years now. In fact, I actually met Jesse Powell at a conference at I believe at the beginning of 2014, where we talked about the different use cases for blockchain. And even back then, Kraken was around, so it was great. Jumping in, Ocean Protocol is making it easier for people to buy and share data securely while preserving their privacy, giving them more control, and allowing them to monetize their data, which up until now has not been possible. We kind of see Ocean as being a connective tissue in a new data economy. And our vision is that data becomes an asset where it's fairly priced and there's a liquid market for it. So that people can, all around the world, can start using data as an asset.
It's very cool. It's a hugely ambitious and really important topic to be working on. Maybe we'll start with that marketplace that you referenced there. So you've got the Ocean Market. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how it works for people?
So Ocean Market is more of a front end. It's a way for people to kind of use the smart contracts that are underlying the Ocean Market. And maybe if I take one step back, so the Ocean smart contracts essentially acts as like access control to your data assets. If you have something like the token that allows you to get access, then the smart contract is going to unlock the data set, let you use the data set according to the principles of the owner, and then it closes them back up. That's kind of the thing. In Ocean Market, all it does is it exposes that capability of the smart contract in a marketplace. And so we already have quite a few data sets that have been published where people can buy this thing called a data token, which then gets them access to the data set. What's also interesting with Ocean Market is it incorporates all the learnings we have about giving people kind of privacy, comfort, protecting their data on one hand. On the other hand, one of the big problems that Ocean Market is trying to help solve is what's the price of data? And so when you upload data into the Ocean Market, you have two choices. You can say fixed price. I know that this data is worth $20 and you can sell it for $20 worth of the Ocean tokens, or you can make it dynamic price. And this is where things get a little bit more interesting. So using the concept of automated market makers and liquidity provisioning, where people can stake on like cryptocurrency pairs, they can also actually stake directly on data. So if you think that a data set is particularly valuable, let's say the data stream that comes from the Mars rover or something like that has value, you can actually stake Oceans behind it as well as data token, and you can earn every time that data set is consumed. There's trades on it, all that kind of stuff. And what that does actually is that activity makes that data set a little bit more liquid, but it also gives a price signal, which is something that we until now have not had at all for data. If you take a look into what's really happening in the world today of data, the information is held by insiders who know kind of the value of data set. They kind of estimate it. The way they price it is cost plus, so cost plus a commission or a margin, or value based. So if you're selling to a hedge fund or a financial service or insurance company, you'll say, you know what, I think this will save you $10 million. I'm going to sell this to you for $500,000. The rest is yours, kind of thing, regardless of how it costs. And so that type of knowledge is really locked up in industry experts and insiders. And what Ocean is doing is it's open sourcing that, open sourcing that, using this interesting liquidity provisioning, automated market making thing. Whereas people put more liquidity in, the value of the data asset gets priced. And so Ocean Market does a couple things. You publish your data, you can buy and sell it, you can access those data, but then there's also this kind of quirk that allows you to have dynamic price data, which is a function of the amount of liquidity.
It's incredible. It's super cool. So when we say data, I mean, it can mean anything from the Mars rover to medical records to what I had for dinner last night. What do you have in your experience, do you have like a hypothesis around what is going to be the first real type of data that gets a lot of traction in this marketplace?
I think the humility that I have in this area is I don't know. And that's why it's so important to give it to the community and let the market decide, because I'm one player. I have some type of data that I think could be valuable or useful, but there's no way that I represent the broad market. And the way I look at it is Amazon. Amazon changed the business model, because in a typical big box bookstore, you'd have 60,000 titles. Amazon, of course, that long tail is 5 million. And what Amazon showed was that books that are long out of print, very obscure, hard to find, you put it all on Amazon in that catalog, and all of a sudden that long tail in total value and total volume exceeds what gets sold in a single big box store. So they brought value where the friction was too high, the cost to procure was too high, but yet people still wanted it. And I think that analogy is very similar for data. You have a lot of data that's very valuable. Think about a Bloomberg terminal. People pay whatever, $5,000, $10,000 a month for a subscription. You think about health data and health records. People pay for that stuff. Advertising. People are paying for a lot of this data already, but it's big amounts, low volume, big amounts kind of thing, big data sets. Even the dark web, you can think of like that. But this long tail of data of everything else, from IoT devices, geolocation, atmospheric, non-government, government stuff, supply chain, all this data is available and none of it is monetized. And we think that long tail, I mean, it's at least a 20 or it could even be 100x what the current data market is today.
I believe that. That's fantastic. And then I think one of the things that you guys referenced in your white paper was around the concept of compute to data, being able to upload your personal what the user decides to upload or make available of personal data. Could you share a little bit more about that? Because the idea of being in control of your own data is actually quite topical these days.
So compute to data is kind of one side of another coin. And I'll actually go to that side because it just makes logical sense. Data is heavy. Data has inertia. When data is sitting on your hard drive, the last thing you want to do is to move 2 terabytes of data off your hard drive through the wiring over the internet to another data center. So it's intuitive that if you're going to start sharing your data and monetizing it, it actually stays exactly where it is. And so compute to data is the other side of the coin. It's how do you make it, and what are the privacy preserving techniques, the ways that you can have powerful computing, the ways that you can have all these capabilities and analytics come to your computer, and then use the wisdom of the millions and billions of other computers out there to then create AI models, analytics, things like this. And so imagine if every single computer was a data center. That's when you would need a compute to data, because you don't necessarily need each computer to provide processing, although that's also a possibility with Ocean as well. But what the whole compute to data approach is, in a very simplistic way, is all the services and resources that you would buy off Amazon would actually come to you on your computer, process the information that it needs to, and then leave without taking any of the data with you. And so Ocean actually allows for a mix and match approach. So Ocean allows for any type of capability to be leveraged and used on your computer. So maybe what happens is you provide the data, but you also provide storage. You might even provide some sort of analytics capability that you sell via the Ocean marketplace. And then you have, let's say, decentralized data centers that uses kind of a combination of permanent storage like Arweave, long-term or middle-term storage like Filecoin. You use processing that comes from another provider. You use Numer AI in terms of a competition. And then Ocean is kind of this connective tissue that keeps all that together using the smart contracts, because it's actually acting as an orchestration layer for a new data economy powering AI.
Fantastic. And speaking of that sort of new economy, you guys have got this concept of initial data offering. Can you share a little bit about what goes into an initial data offering and how it's different from like an idea on a DEX? So it'd be great to explain a bit what you mean by initial data offering and what users can expect from that.
Sure. I think just popping stack. If you think about what people like Naval Ravikant is saying, or Balaji Srinivasan, and all these really influential folks in Silicon Valley are saying, is that in the future world, judgment is something that's going to be very valuable, human judgment. And as machines, AI, robotics start taking more value and drudgery, to be honest, away from people, the more valuable our judgment is. And where judgment typically plays out is in zero-sum games potentially, but also win-win situations, and that is trading. It is in finding assets, speculating, trying to make trades, using leverage if necessary, all this kind of stuff, and turning an asset that is a financial asset into something that they can make profit. And that's a fundamental kind of outcropping of this insight that judgment, human judgment, is very unique. The machines still haven't caught up, and that financial markets is where that judgment can best be used for where incentives are aligned. And if you look at where Ocean has come from and where it's going, our whole job is to allow for data to be monetized. And as soon as you monetize it, then that opens up this angle of, well, can you collateralize it? Can you securitize it? Can you use all the tools of DeFi that are now being built in order to turn it into a security in a sense? And we believe the answer is yes. And so Ocean Market actually, as a kind of a bonus feature, allows for initial data offerings in where if a data set is consumed enough, it generates a cash flow. The liquidity behind that data set is sufficient so that the price becomes stable or volatile within the range of any crypto asset or even stock market asset. And what people can start doing is saying this representation, this data token that represents that data is a collateral that I can use. So it's not even just the data, it's a representation of the data, which can then be bought, sold, and traded like you would do. Like Apple represents kind of the earnings potential of the Apple company. You would buy, sell, securitize, collateralize, lock up Apple shares in the financial system. And that way you financialize data and you've essentially created an initial data offering where data is a securitized asset.
Wow. So with that, in that world, does it require the data set to be constantly updated, or is it just like the yellow pages from 2004 is worth this much and so on?
So yeah, no, that's a great question. That's a great question. What we found in the few months that we've been up is that it's very clear fresh data wins. And so what we see is just like a company constantly needs to innovate. I'm sure they can have a core product that attracts people, but if you don't keep updating that product line, you keep having new products that show up, then that company will start to decay. The revenue streams will go down. They'll be less reliable and such like that. It's the same with data. In fact, more so. The curve of the exponential on data is probably 1,000x, probably even 1,000,000x faster than like a company per se. A specific example, if you look at a company like Facebook, most of their revenue streams come from very old products from 2004 to 2006. The timeline, all the advertising. Google is the same thing. A lot of the mass amount of their revenue streams come from old product lines. So in some ways, my answer is that they are ready to be disrupted because they have older revenue streams, and there aren't that many new ones. It's going to be exactly the same with data, except it's going to move 1,000 times faster.
Cool. One of the hard parts of running a marketplace is conflict and dispute resolution. So how do you guys think about, somebody uploads a data set that they probably shouldn't be, like a scraped list of email addresses or something like that? Are you guys actively monitoring the marketplace, and how do you guys handle these types of issues?
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. We were a little bit, we didn't expect so much of that to happen immediately as soon as we launched the marketplace. But, as with anything, it gets tested and stressed. And so within the first week, we had a lot of that, exactly what you described. And we started with the idea, the very centralized idea, okay, like block these 5 or 6. But we quickly realized that doesn't scale. We don't have the team members. We actually also don't want to be the ones who are making the judge of what's good and bad, like what some of the central platforms are doing now, like Twitter and Facebook and all, censoring speech and stuff like that. And so what we did is we crowdsourced it. We allowed the community to identify it, and they were the ones who provided us the types of content which they believed violated copyright, personal privacy, any local laws that were, that the general public would believe that we should abide by. And what we did is we said, we don't want to be doing this. This is what we think that the community should be doing. And then what we also did was we added in kind of verified publishers. The same thing as, we don't want to be the one to whitelist them. We don't want to be the one that gives you the little torpy sign or the star that what Twitter gives you. And so we allowed people to self identify themselves using a triangulation of things like Twitter, your Ethereum address, a different profile somewhere like your LinkedIn, your GitHub, and all that sort of stuff. And through that decentralized way, each publisher was able to then identify themselves and allow the community to decide whether or not they had a sufficient reputation to buy their data set. And so that's kind of how we approach this, and I'm happy with that approach. And let's see how that scales.
Yeah, I really like that actually. In playing with the marketplace a bit last night, I really liked the being able to see the publisher and seeing their background and seeing how many it makes you feel more confident that they're a legitimate operator. Yeah. So I know there's a lot of partnerships that have been going and in the works, both within the crypto industry, but also in traditional markets. So I think you guys in 2018, 2019 had a partnership with some automakers that was covered in the New York Times. And it would be great to hear a little bit more about some of the, one, how is that going? You're working with traditional industries, as well as some partnerships that you're working on in the crypto industry as well.
Sure, happy to do that. So unfortunately, most of the stuff that we're doing with industry partners, they're under NDA. But what I can tell you is kind of the general aspect. Number one, people are very interested in this. Large enterprises see that data is an asset. It's this visceral feeling, like all of us in the crypto space have had, that this is big, this is something important. They see that for data, particularly. They're seeing that less for the crypto economy, and they want to kind of shy away from that. But in our engagements with the enterprise, we say that you can't separate them. If you're going to try to monetize your data in the new world, there's going to be an asset of tokenization, and that's going to be a crypto token. So let's focus first on the use case, but we're not going to do any work that doesn't include this concept of decentralized registries, decentralized kind of smart contracts, because we're not going to make the same mistake that the first wave of industries did, which was, I think, in 2014, 2016, 2017, you had this first wave of industry partners who said, we can do everything. It's blockchain, not Bitcoin. It is the blockchain, not the crypto, and because that's all the bad stuff. That's all the criminals, drug dealers, and stuff like that. We're stripping that out, essentially sterilizing it, and then it'll still be fine. Not the case. Never works. And so that's how we're approaching working with enterprises, which is really exciting, because the ones who pass through that filter, that you have a partner who's either willing to go, willing to experiment, and willing to push this up to the highest levels, so that it's a higher chance for success for us, because they're already willing to imagine a world where crypto plus the blockchain using ocean smart contracts is a viable business option. And so that's kind of the main message I would probably want to say with the enterprise, is that we're working with quite a few of them. They're really interested in data. And the main filter that we use is, are you ready to jump into the crypto economy when it's ready? As long as we meet the conditions of kind of your controlling your accounting and stuff, and they say yes, all right, fine, we'll do that. And then that's how it works. So there's no sterilization, there's no dumbing it down, all this sort of stuff. We make it enterprise grade, but it's still got that crypto aspect, which is fundamental. And then for the other stuff, I mean, we're working with a lot of the crypto projects because we see that they're the ones who understand crypto, so there's no onboarding in terms of saying, you guys have an Ethereum wallet. Oh, let me teach you about MetaMask. Okay, let me teach you about, there's none of that stuff. So A, that's good. B, there's a lot of data that's being generated here. So for instance, Kraken exchange, all the data that you have on each pair, the buying history, a lot of that stuff, exchanges currently, might rent out a subscription with buying the API to traders. They might sell it to some of the analytics companies like Keiko, Mazari, all this sort of stuff. But there might be another distribution channel in, for instance, Ocean Protocol, where you actually have that, as we talked about, a live data stream in the Ocean market, where then you're getting paid directly based on the market, and that can actually help inform you what the value of your data is worth compared and for the various use cases. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find different ways where we can work with the blockchain and crypto projects in the space to integrate different components of their system into ours, integrate their data that's being generated, or marry ourselves closer to DeFi, because as I said, the financialization of data is the end goal once we get it out. So we get the data into kind of a digitized blockchain format where it can be financialized, and then we financialize it. So any of those three things. So make our system more robust, get your data and trading up to speed and get it in there. And third, how do we make money off it for everybody so that anyone on Earth can start making money on their data?
It's really cool. So what do you have coming up for this year? So what's a good result for the end of 2021 for you guys and for the broader open protocol movement?
I think we talked a lot about this, and one of the things is the main thing is something like 100 projects that are working on Ocean, somehow integrated, working with us, uploading data, 100 projects. We'd also like 200 developers. And then I think almost everything else flows from there. Working with exchanges to maybe getting exchange data as one of the partners and stuff like that. But I think those are two very simple metrics, and pretty much everything else will come with that. Because if you have 100 partners, one of them is going to pop, right? Portfolio kind of thinking, VC thinking. Out of those 100, 5 are going to have a use case that's going to get attention. It's going to start scaling. It's going to make sense. 200 developers, that's obvious because that's a lead indicator for any successful project that we're seeing, right? So we're seeing that Polkadot ecosystem is now growing very fast in developers. Cosmos, there's a whole bunch of different other ecosystems where you're seeing that the number of developers that are behind a protocol is a lead indicator for its future success.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, that's really exciting. And I think those are the right metrics to focus on when you're trying to build a marketplace and a community, and that's fantastic. So before we go, is there anything else that I haven't asked that you'd like to make sure that the Kraken audience gets to hear about?
We're just really happy to be with Kraken. I think that the collaboration has been fantastic. We look forward to being a strong partner to Kraken in the years following.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It's a super exciting project. We really enjoyed working with you and look forward to continuing so.
Thank you very much.